This is The Cut. The Cut Podcast with Pete Ferguson. Film, music, games, entertainment. This is The Cut from Telegraph Talk.
Hello and welcome back to The Cut, the Telegraph's weekly entertainment podcast. In this week's edition of The Cut, we talk to director and writer of new movie The Brothers Bloom, Rian Johnson. Nick and Tom review new games Super Mario Galaxy 2 and No More Heroes 2. Our film critic Tim Robey reviews the week's new movies for us and find out what he thinks of She's Out of My League, amongst others. And there's a huge wad of new music to check out this week. Find out exactly what shortly.
Summer 2010. The Cut on Twitter, Facebook and telegraph.co.uk/The Cut.
First though, we've been chatting to Rian Johnson, the director and writer of new movie The Brothers Bloom this week. We began by asking him what it was like working with the cast including Rachel Weisz, Mark Ruffalo and Robbie Coltrane.
Oh, they're awesome. I got really lucky with those guys. I mean, they're all, besides being like some of the best actors working out there today, they're Academy Award-winning actors, and they're, I was very nervous, but it just ended up working with people who were friends, and I think that is how everybody ends up doing their best creative work, is when they're in that headspace and when they're actually having a good time, I spent most of my 20s trying to get Brick, my first movie, trying to get it made, and I was very broke during most of my 20s. I kind of had this romanticized vision of travel, but I couldn't afford to do it at all. And so that's where I think a lot of the starry-eyed sort of vision of globetrotting through Europe kind of comes from in this movie, is myself in my 20s kind of sitting in my apartment wishing I could see these amazing places. That's kind of where Penelope, the character of Penelope is in the film. She's trapped in her mansion the whole time, and then when they bring her out into this bigger world, it's very much like an armchair adventurer's vision of Europe, I guess. There's a great, phrase: films are never finished; they're just abandoned. I think that's really true. You're never fully satisfied with something. I'm so happy it's finally coming out in the UK. It's odd to revisit it now, though, because it's been about a year since it came out in the States, and so I'm going to be very curious to sit down with an audience tonight and actually see how people bounce off of it and react to it. Because for me, at this point, I'm starting to make the next movie already, and it feels like very much the end of. I don't know. It feels like a delayed ending to the whole process of making Bloom.
Is there anything you can tell us about your next movie?
Yeah, it's a science fiction thing. It's called Looper, and it's a time travel movie. It's very much like the exact opposite of Bloom. It's dark and violent, but hopefully in a very different and interesting sort of way. So I'm very excited about it.
This is The Cut. Telegraph.co.uk/The Cut.
And that was Rian Johnson talking about his new movie The Brothers Bloom, which is out now. Right now, though, it's time to see what our film critic Tim Robey thinks about that film and the rest of the week's new releases.
Film.
So Mr. Robey's here in the studio. Let's talk about some movies that are out this week. First of all, She's Out of My League. It's a rom-com.
Yeah, I just saw it and I was surprised how good it was. It's actually really delightful. It's sort of the conventional boy meets girl story, except he's kind of a bit scrawny and geeky, and she's this sort of blonde goddess who Alice Eve plays.
Hence the title.
Jay Baruchel, who plays the lead, is really great in it. He's got really good comic timing. He's got quite an unusual look, and you can see he's got something really quite distinctive. And
he's one to watch.
He totally is. It's a much better scripted comedy than you're expecting as well, because to begin with, he's hanging out with his mates, and it's all kind of boorish and a bit kind of sort of hangover-ish. I was worried. But then, actually, it starts sparking off, and there's some really funny banter in it.
The title suggests it's a sort of film where you might expect, say, Jennifer Aniston, Jim Carrey, somebody like that.
No,
Steve Carell.
It's a younger kind of movie than that, really. It's more in the kind of knocked-up age group, I guess.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff about how, he thinks he's about a 5 and she's a perfect 10, and you can't make up more than 2 points, so what the hell are they going to do? And there's this nonsense, all this point system.
Now for something completely different, as they say. The Killer Inside Me. You don't get much different to the previous film. This is a very dark, very violent film.
Yeah, it's an adaptation of a Jim Thompson noir crime novel set in the 50s. Casey Affleck is basically a sort of psychotic Texan sheriff it's very heavy in the violence towards women, which I think people have kind of found very difficult.
Right.
To my mind, it needs to be full-on unentertaining violence. It needs to be kind of quite difficult to make the points it's making, but it's still not necessarily the kind of movie everyone's going to want to sit through. I think even though I guess I respect the integrity there, I'm not sure it's as rewarding as a character study as I'd like it to have been. Casey Affleck is really good in the lead. Looks great. Michael Winterbottom does a really kind of sleek job shooting it.
Do you think the violent upstages the story?
I didn't personally feel that, but I can see why other people would.
Okay, just a couple of other suggestions. We'll come on to Death at a Funeral in a moment, but what about The Brothers Bloom?
Yeah, this is a sort of quirky con man movie about two brothers played by Adrian Brody and Mark Ruffalo. It's from this young director called Rian Johnson, who made Brick with Joseph Gordon-Levitt a few years ago. He's got a very kind of off-kilter sensibility. They try to pull off this big con against a very wealthy woman played by Rachel Weisz, who's kind of living alone in this huge mansion, and they decide to try and trick her. And it's kind of full of quirk and kind of oddity, and it's quite lively and fun for a while, and then I felt it started to drag about halfway through.
One of my favourite actors is in it though, Mr. Coltrane.
Oh, he actually really lifts it. His little section, which is only about sort of 20 minutes of it halfway through, is really good. It's the best bit, actually. Something
that's a lot lighter, Chris Rock in Death at the Funeral.
Yeah, this is a remake, because they did this film
a couple of years
ago
in
the UK, from the same script. Frank Oz directed it, and I thought the British version was really lousy.
Judging by the trailer I've seen, though, this isn't much better.
Well, it's not much better. What they've done is they've taken off the really, really offensive kind of elements, but they've still not actually managed to make it funny. It's just sort of sits there. And I think Chris Rock is actually pretty good in it. I didn't think Martin Lawrence was any good in it, but then I almost never do. The script is dead in the water, basically.
I'm going to urge people not to watch it.
I don't think it's worth it,
In that case, probably the best of the bunch is She's Out of My League.
Would you agree? What a surprise.
Let's have a listen to a clip of the film. And until next week, Tim, thanks very much.
I'd like to make it up to you. Do you like coffee?
Yes, I do. I don't get it. Why would she ask me out?
Are you nervous?
Yes. This Molly is a hard 10. Meanwhile, the guy's a 5.
Summer 2010. The Cut. On Twitter, Facebook, and telegraph.co.uk/The Cut.
And that's a clip from new film She's Out of My League, which is out now. So if you've seen a film which you've particularly enjoyed, why not tell us about it so we can let everyone else enjoy the film too? Just email thecut@telegraph.co.uk. We review No More Heroes 2 and Super Mario Galaxy 2 in just a moment with this week's games review. First though, let's check out some new music. And first up, 2 new albums. Christina Aguilera's 4th studio album, Bionic, is out now. And from it, here's Woohoo. Morcheeba are back with a new album. It's called Blood Like Lemonade. Their current single, Even Though, reflects their worries about humanity. Nice. You can also catch them live at this year's Big Chill Festival.
Even though we know it's forever changing, even though we know we lie and wait, even though we know the hidden danger, I hope it's not too late.
Okay, on to the week's new singles, and kicking off with Athlete and The Getaway.
I never really know who you are. You could be a ghost for all I know. Whenever you're home.
2010 is proving to be a great year for Manchester's Delphic, and quite right too. Here's Counterpoint.
Tell me nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong today.
Alive is Goldfrapp's new tune, out this week. Keisha, Your Love Is My Drug, is all over radio station playlists at the moment, but if you haven't heard it yet, here's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Turn It Up is the title track and 5th single from Pixie Lot's album, and it's out now. And finally, Dancing on My Own. Ah, bless her. It's a new single from Robey. And of course, as always, for the very latest music news and reviews, head to telegraph.co.uk/The Cut and just follow the links.
Summer 2010. The Cut from telegraph.co.uk. Games.
Right, time to talk games then. Nick and Tom are both here in the studio today. First of all, Nick, let's talk about No More Heroes 2.
No More Heroes 2 is obviously the sequel to No More Heroes 1.
No way.
Yes way. No More Heroes 2 is centered around a character called Travis Touchdown.
Nice.
Yeah, who with a beam katana, not a lightsaber, a beam katana, became the top assassin in the world in the last game. And in this game, he has to become the top assassin in the world again. Basically, you fight people with the beam katana. Aside from that, you have, 8-bit games, which are pretty addictive. It's really good, though, isn't it? You liked it.
It's excellent. It's excellent. It's super weird, absolutely crazy, furious, filthy, but a lot of fun. But it can be very obtuse at times.
I mean, I'd say it's probably a cross between David Lynch and Quentin Tarantino, with a great dollop of humour on top.
So the overall consensus is that game's pretty good then?
As long as you're the right age to play it.
There you go.
It's an 18.
It's super violent.
Yeah.
Very, very violent.
And foul-mouthed, so...
And another game you've been playing where you probably don't have to be over 18 is Super Mario Galaxy 2. Tom, apparently you're the expert on this game.
He's absolutely the expert.
You described him as writing a love letter to Super Mario, Nick.
Yes, that was his review.
And why do you like it so much then, Tom?
It's just...
You looked in love.
I am in love. I am in love. It's just so beautifully crafted. I mean, everyone knows Mario. He's so iconic, and there's no sort of pretense of story or anything. It's just a beautifully made game where you go through these wonderfully created galaxies, and it's like being in a Disney film. The funny thing about Mario is that in sort of 25 years, he hasn't really changed. I mean, he's always been wonderful to control, but it's just these worlds are getting more grander and more colourful and more brilliantly crafted. And there's so much invention in sort of every aspect of it. But it's fantastically made from a technical point of view as well.
Are some of the other familiar characters there from Super Mario as well?
Yeah, you've got Yoshi returns, which is fantastic because he brings his own skills and he completely changes the game. It's all the joyous things in the world put onto a disc.
He loves it, doesn't he?
And it's
he loves
it's
it.
Fantastic.
He does.
Tom's in love. It's very romantic. All right, guys, well, two good games there.
Either.
No shame, and why not? Two good games, I think, for everyone to check out this week. That's No More Heroes 2 and Super Mario Galaxy 2. Tom and Nick, thank you very much.
Cheers.
This is The Cut.
And there we go, that concludes this week's edition of The Cut podcast, your weekly entertainment feast from The Telegraph. As always, you can keep up to date with what we're up to during the week. Simply head to twitter.com/The Cut podcast. As always, you can also find us on Facebook, and you can email the team, thecut@telegraph.co.uk. But that's it for this week. Thanks again for listening and subscribing via iTunes. I'm Pete Ferguson, and that was The Cut.